first of all, I would like to thank the organizers, CCMB, BFI, Dr. Pooja, Ramji, Dr. Vinay, for inviting me. And then most important thing is selecting this such a pertinent topic, regulatory compliance. Of course, it is day one, but believe me, regulatory compliance is the valley of death in current times, not the early stage funding or scale up. How many of you agree with this? Okay, good. Okay, so let's start with a quick survey. I just want to analyze the audience. So how many of you are startups? Okay, good. And researchers? Right. And is there any other category like consultants or, apart from the speakers I know, any consultants, freelancers, any agencies who are working in this domain? Yeah, so we need your expertise in this domain. So thank you. So let's start. Yeah, so as demanded by the organizers, first 5 minutes, 2 slides I have on the introduction about BIRAC. So how many of you know about BIRAC? So that I will not stress a lot of time. Okay, so we have around 3% participants who know. So let me present 2 slides about BIRAC. So BIRAC is Biotechnology Industry Research Assistance Council. It's a Section 8 company of Government of India, Department of Biotechnology. And this has been set up in 2012 to support startups, SMEs to perform high-risk innovations in the field of biotechnology, definitely. And so we always say that we nurture innovations from ideation to commercialization stage. And we have various programs which are aligned, which starts right from the ideation stage and they move till the commercialization. So if you look at this graph, yeah. So in this graph, you can see that right from the ideation, we have programs like eYuva, Sparsh, Sitaare, BIG, AIR. I am assuming that you know the full form of these schemes. Anyway, I will explain in the next slide. So AIR is specific for the academic research, then it moves to the SIBRI, CRS, BIP. So the most important point here is that right from the idea till the commercialization stage, we have various programs. And apart from the grant, we also have equity-based programs like Seed Fund, Leap Fund, ACE. So PCU is Product Commercialization Unit. So this is something which I will talk about in the next slide. And apart from this, we have 95 BioNest incubators across India. And they are actually providing the kind of lab which is required for the prototyping work and for developing the initial level prototypes or the, I will say, products. So the BIRAC is basically, we say that it's a central agency which empowers, enables, accelerates biotech innovation ecosystem in India. And we operate in 5 domains, 4-5 domains, which is most importantly healthcare, because healthcare is actually the area where we actually, today we talk about. Then it is biotech, industrial biotech, agriculture, waste management, sanitation, and clean energy. So let me talk about the various programs we have. So we, as I just said earlier, we start with early stage funding, BIG, the Biotechnology Ignition Grant. So how many of you have applied for BIG? Okay, so 10 participants, I can see few startups who are actually created by the Sparsh program also here. So good to see the number. And how many of you are successful in getting the grant? Congratulations, that's a good number. So BIG is very competitive program. We give 50 lakhs of a grant for the establishing the proof of concept. And then we also have at the early stage, we have Sparsh, we have SIP program where it's an immersion based fellowship program which is to germinate startups and which leads to academic research. PACE is a program which is for academia. We have 2 components under the PACE scheme, AIR, which is Academia Industry Research, and then CRS, which is Contract Research Services. So I just want to ask a question from the faculty members. Have you applied under PACE? So now you know that, if you want to apply under the AIR scheme, you should contact this sir. Okay, so as we move to the advanced stage funding, we have SIBRI and BIPP programs. So SIBRI is for early stage validation and BIPP is for late stage. Early stage validation is pilot level clinical validation when you just start doing the testing, in-house testing also, and animal testing. All this comes under the SIBRI program. Again, there is a matching contribution from the company and the BIRAC for SIBRI and BIPP. The guidelines are available on the BIRAC website. You can visit. And if you have any queries, you can anytime write to BIRAC. We usually organize grant writing workshops whenever the call is on. So apart from these two funding programs, we also have equity, seed fund, LEAP fund, ACE fund. So these are actually in partnership with our, I will say, incubators and our regional partners. So there is an equity which we charge. Anyways, if you want to avail the equity-based grant or loan, then definitely you can write to BIRAC. There are few specific validation and commercialization programs like Janacare, WISH, and product commercialization program, which are very specific for the late stage validation. And if you are interested to get some grant for validation and you also want some kind of networking with the clinical partners and all, that time you can actually apply for the validation programs, which is Janacare, PCP's product commercialization program, and it starts only with TRL level 7. So that means when you have developed the product at the time of commercialization, you can apply under the PCP. As I said, BIRAC believes in networking, showcasing, mentoring. So we have Global Bio India. Every year we do a large event, Global Bio India. How many of you have attended that? Only the first 2 rows. Okay, 3 are there. So good. Nice. So there are few niche area programs also very specific on antimicrobial resistance. COVID at the COVID time we did a lot of calls in the COVID. Then clean cooking, Gorgum, secondary agri. So these are very niche area specific calls. 1 or 2 calls we announce whenever there's a need to align with the national mission mode programs. And at BIRAC we have 2 different PMUs. Grand Challenge India, GCI. Any beneficiary of GCI? No. Or NBM, National Biopharma Mission? Yes, good. 1. Great. So we have 2-3 different mission programs at BIRAC. GCI, NBM, then Make in India is coming up. Startup India, definitely we have a cell at BIRAC. And apart from all these things, we have an incubator network. We have developed this ecosystem with the help of 95 incubators. So I think CDFD is one of the BioNest, and CCMB is also one of the BioNest. So this is all about the programs which we have, and there are other programs also which I will talk about in the regulatory domain. But if you have any queries in this slide, if you want to apply to any of the programs of BIRAC, you can just write to me, or you can send email to birac.dbt@nic.in, and you will get the answers. So you must have observed that all of these programs are actually linked to the technology readiness levels, right? So how many of you know about the TRLs? Okay, so there are 6-10 participants who are aware. But how many of you agree that these TRLs actually are aligned in terms of innovations and regulations? I mean, most of the people think that these TRLs are only for the innovation. But can you even believe that these TRLs are not only for the innovation, but actually links the regulations and the innovations? So how I can just prove? So first of all, I mean, technology readiness levels are the indicators of product maturity. And the concept was started by NASA. And there are many TRLs. Every organization usually develops their own, but BIRAC, we have our own TRLs. And I will explain only the TRLs for one area, which is MedTech. So because I was a nodal officer for MedTech for many years, so that is why, in fact, at the conceptualization stage of these TRLs, we have worked a lot with many industries. So I will explain this, but for other areas, like biosimilars, biologics, all the TRLs are available on the BIRAC website, and you can refer to it. So it's a heavy slide. The 2 slides are quite heavy, but I will try to explain bit by bit. So whenever you start a research, you start with ideation, right? So you start with the problem statement. You identify a need. So basic principles are laid down, some foundation, fundamental things literature review and all. So this is just the first step, ideation, right? Till this point we are okay, but as we move forward, what is the first thing which comes to your mind? Is there a market? Right? So all the investors, all the mentors in all your workshops, what they tell you is that please do the market study of your solution or your proposed problem statement, right? So you start with competitors analysis. And then you start developing a alpha level prototype, or you start sketching a kind of device or kind of prototype. What exactly do you want? But can you even believe, or I really don't know whether you know or not, the regulations start at this stage. When you even start sketching the concept, sketching the idea. So there is a full chapter in the medical device rules which actually talks about the designing. So at that time itself, you should actually know that whatever I am doing at later stage, around 5 or 6 months back, I will refer to a document, very well laid down document, a big document with all the requirements. So it is good to refer to that document before you even start sketching. And then we usually develop the product specifications. But this is the big mistake I have seen that a lot of startups, they don't define the product at the early stage. They just wait for the development. At the end of developing the product, then they think, oh, regulations ask me about the TPP. So what is that? And then they start searching the product specifications through the competitors. But the competitors, the data, everything is available, right? Who is stopping you in defining your TPP at the beginning, at the designing stage itself? So that when you develop a product, when you start spending money, that time you should have full control on the money, on the design, on the competitors' specification, on or your product, right? Okay, so FTO, freedom to operate. We all know about FTO. In fact, BIRAC always, before sanctioning a proposal, we always ask for a FTO report, freedom to operate. So, are you aware of this? Please raise your hand. Okay, that's a shock for me. But yes, the freedom to operate is a kind of document, IP. Whether you have are you free to actually work on that specific idea or that specific prototype? Can you sell it? So that's basically patents and intellectual property rights. So it is very important that you do the freedom to operate search at very beginning. It's a kind of report which is generated. We have IP cell at BIRAC. If you want the help of BIRAC, BIRAC can also help you. But FTO is must. But FTO, I mean, is IP, and from last 10, 12 years, we are actually talking about IP and all, but have you ever heard of regulatory risk assessment? So this is something which is very important, and most of the startups forget to do the regulatory risk assessment, that not only with respect to the feasibility, the timelines, but there are multiple things which you should actually check right at the beginning, right at the time of your designing stages. And it is called as a proof of principle. And after the proof of principle, basically what you start developing individual modules, you test these modules separately, whether it is functioning or not. You develop some kind of alpha prototypes on breadboard, laboratory level definitely. You start checking the materials, electrical safety and all, right? So what are the regulations here? So at that time only the regulations start, cytotoxicity, biocompatibility. Later on, if you think about cytotoxicity after developing the material, after selecting the material and developing the product, then your time is gone. Right? So at the very beginning, you should think about the material, or everything, every individual component, the regulations required for safety. Safety, Dr. Banghera talked about safety, I can't see him here, but yes. So electrical safety, IME tests, who will do these kind of tests? Are the standards available for these, whatever material you are selecting? Who will actually help you? Are the BIS standards available? If not, are there any international? Otherwise, you have to end up developing a standard yourself, like a voluntary certification. So these things are very important at the beginning, because these can actually define the timeline, the go-to-market strategy, and every possible step you are going to take in the product development. So that is why these first three we usually say that these are just the research. We are at the research stage. We are doing academic trials. Why should we think about the regulations? So I don't know whether from your institute side you are applying for the IBSC approvals or not, but at the very beginning, at the research level, whenever you're dealing with microorganisms or you're working at the lab, you should know what kind of risk classification of the pathogens which you are using. At the three risk-based classification. So you should be aware of all these guidelines and you should apply directly for the IBSC if it falls under the risk 2 and risk 3 category. Okay, this was all about the individual modules. Then you start integrating different modules, right? You check the function, whether the full system is working or not. And that time, the three words which are basic of any regulations, any act, Drugs and Cosmetics Act, Medical Device Rule, take the name of any act. These are the three words which are the foundations: safety, efficacy, and performance. These are very easy to hear: safety, efficacy, performance. There is a full guideline which actually explains how to do the experiments, how to make a protocol, how to design a study. So all these things are required at the time of just proof of concept. We are at a research stage only. We are not talking about commercialization yet. And then proof of concept established. This is the fourth stage. I mean, yes, I've just talked about it. And at this stage, we try to perform animal models. So you should be aware what kind of animal models are available in India. If not, whether you should pursue your research or you should change it, or you should go for simulated model. But simulated model, again, whether it is acceptable by CDSC or not. Whether the guidelines accept these kind of simulation model, otherwise later on, after doing all the tests, you will go to CDSC for test license or manufacturing license. They will clearly ask for the data and they reject it. Again, you are at the zero stage. So these are some of the things like IAC, CCSC approval. So are you dealing with the small animals or the large animals? Which approval you have to take? If the humans are involved, then IEC. So what are these guidelines or what are these approval bodies? You should be aware of all these things. Okay, this was all about the research. And the usual perception is that the regulations start at this stage, at the clinical trial stage, at the first in-human trial stage. But again, QMS in-house testing, we need IEC, ISO test. The list should be ready with you. What kind of standards are available from BIS side, it should be ready with you for your product. Quality management certification is such a basic requirement, and there's a full schedule for QMS. It's very difficult to implement. So you should read through all that schedule of medical device rule. And then comes the GLP, GMP, GCP. So what are these? So there are very big guidelines for GCP, GLP. I mean, we can organize 2-day training just on GCP. So GMP is good manufacturing practices and GLP is laboratory practices. So all these things are required when you start thinking about animal trials or first in human trials. And there are different guidelines for these different requirements. Okay, so IEC again should be registered with CDSCO. Are you aware of this fact that all the IEC, every organization has an IEC, right? And it is registered, it is approved by CDSCO. And there is a guideline which defines that what kind of people are there in IEC. How many of you are aware of this? Only 2. Okay, 5. Good. So let's move forward. We have early stage validation. So after in-house testing, we go for the outsourcing. We usually do third-party validation. Again, this is just the early stage validation. And you have fully functional clinical grade device, not the alpha, beta, gamma. It is a clinical grade device. That means it will go for testing in humans. And you should have a regulatory dossier ready with you. With all the documentation, it should be as per the checklist which is provided by CDSCO. Quality assurance certification, CE certification, although it's not a requirement in India, it's a European requirement, but most of the startups in medtech domain, they try to get the CE. And you should be aware of the various standards which are applicable, various tests which are required for CE, because the charges are huge. And there are many consultants, I should not say this, but there are many agents who try to fool you in terms of getting the money. But if you go through some of the guidelines, they are very easy and you can directly approach the CE, or in fact CDSCO, for national level also. You can directly approach CDSCO. They have a PRO office, you can write to them and you can get the clarifications. Okay, so once you get the test license, pivotal study, pilot study, pivotal study starts, and then comes the manufacturing lines. So you have to, if you want to outsource, you have to select a partner, a manufacturing partner who has QMS, where you can get your product manufactured as per the regulatory requirements. You can't just assemble your product in lab and start testing. Later on, the CDSCO will come back and say, you are not taken the test license. You don't have a QMS system in place. So what to do now? You go back and start doing the trials again. So that is why it is very important to actually sign the agreement with the manufacturing partner that they will manufacture as per the regulatory requirements after taking the test license from CDSCO. Okay, design for DFM, design history file. These are big documents which should be prepared. Not only you should start developing these documents at the early stage only, at the time when you start sketching or at the time when you finalize your prototypes for the clinical grade. Yes, so final pre-commercialization manufacturing license is given by CDSCO, and then you say that yes, happy, my product is in market. There are again regulatory requirements like pharmacovigilance, post-market studies. That's how at the TRL 9, even after commercialization, you have to follow the regulations. Okay, I've just touched down on the various requirements. I have actually missed a lot of other things also. And this is only for medtech domain. If we move to biologics, stem cells, we don't have any regulatory framework, like Dr. Sudhakar Bangera also mentioned. But for biosimilars, it's very well laid down. So you should be aware of the various guidelines you should actually read before even starting, like a coursework, right? You must be postdocs, PhDs in the biological domain. Have you ever, I think some of the students are from pharmaceutical background also, right? Please raise your hand. Okay, do you have a regulatory course in your degree program? Okay, so what kind of studies, what kind of topics you study in this? Anybody can just tell us. Okay. That's actually really good, because in India we are also trying to develop some kind of regulatory courses for the scientists for biotech domain, for giving them this kind of IBSC, what is GRAS, what is risk-based classification. In terms of, I'm not talking about the medical device risk-based classification, I'm talking about the microorganisms. So BSL level 3 facility, when to use it. So all these things you should know at the research stage only, and we should have a course for it. So that is why we are working with different organizations to actually develop courses, so that the scientists at the time of MSc, PhD, postdoc, they should be aware of the regulatory, so that when they start a company or when they do a research, they do this research ethically and with responsibility. And believe me, I'm facing a lot of problems in hiring manpower in the regulatory department of BIRAC, because as Dr. Sudhakar mentioned, the industry is also just hire freshers in the quality assurance, because we don't have the trained manpower. Who will train it? We don't have any trained manpower. So we have to hire freshers and we have to train them. So it is very important, it's a high time that all the academicians should work towards developing some courses also. And this is just the beginning. So in your journey, you have to face a lot of dilemma in terms of regulatory pathway. You have to take a lot of important decisions. So when is the right time for regulatory filing? At what time you should approach CDSCO? What geographies you should select? Because there is a high cost for every geography. What kind of manufacturing license, in which geography you want to apply, which market you want to select, what kind of documentation is required, whether you should hire a regulatory consultant or not, because a lot of fees, a lot of money involved in it. And where will you get this fund? So who should be your validation partner? Should you hire a CRO? or you can directly go to a hospital, select a PI in that for that specific indication and start doing the trials. And what kind of standards and specifications? It's very difficult to get the list of standards which apply to your product. For a single ventilator, there are more than 40 standards, you know. So how to get that list? It's very difficult. And then challenges, definitely regulatory awareness. Startups struggle a lot. There's no single body who actually trains them, who can take their questions. Apart when we started First Hub, it was started specifically for this reason only. Regulatory guidance. I mean, the biggest aspect here is that different organizations with different mandate, which actually regulates different products. Now look at this slide. 10 different organizations. CEDESCO, DBT, RCGM, IVSC, MO, GACs, Ministry of External, ICMR, BIS, QCI, FSSAI, NIB, then for HTA, for integration into the national level programs, you need HTA, and I forgot NPPA, the Pricing Control Authority. So I mean, it's very difficult to deal with these different organizations and even know that whether we fall under the domain of this specific organization or not. Okay, so this is the unmet need of regulatory facilitation. These are just the chapters. Okay, the new medical device, just the list of chapters. Have you read this book in any of your courses like this? Is this big book? Okay, there are two I can see hands raised here, 3 also. So good. It's a very big book. It's a big act. You should read it like a coursework. So you can download. It's a big PDF, bilingual, Hindi also and English also. So you can just download and read it. And if you are able to understand these chapters, we will organize a workshop by taking you as an expert, because it's very difficult. And apart from these chapters, there are schedules. And then there are new definitions. And believe me, it's just very difficult to actually, let me give an example, to distinguish between clinical investigation and clinical performance evaluation. And then establish a link between predicate device and substantial equivalence. And the full regulatory pathway changes just because of this definition. There are 2 different pathways. If your product is a novel technology or novel device, then you have to take different kind of approvals in different kind of forms through CDSA. But if you have a predicate device approved by CDSCO in India, then there is a different pathway, and which is easier. So at the very beginning, at the time when you start applying for test license, you should be aware of these guidelines, these rules. Okay, so this is just 3 in the beginning itself in the medical device rule, where all it, in which categories this medical device is applicable, Medical Device Act is applicable to. This is just the first section, and it's very difficult to interpret these clauses. See, I'm just reading out: without anticoagulant covered under subclause 1 of section 3 of the Drugs and Cosmetics Act. So this is just for in vitro diagnostics. They're explaining that what kind of things are included under the Medical Device Act. Then substances including mechanical contraceptives, disinfectants, insecticides notified under subclause 2nd of section 3 of Drugs and Cosmetics Act 23 of 1940. And devices notified from time to time under subclause 4 of clause B of section 3 of Drugs and Cosmetics Act. But this is just to tell that what kind of things are applicable. I mean, the medical device rule is applicable to these kind of devices. So earlier it was only 9 categories which are regulated by CDSO, but now let me make it clear that all the devices, IVDs, comes under the purview of CDSO now, after the implementation of medical device rule. There is a risk-based classification, risk A, B, C, D, but there is no NOC now. Okay, because a lot of startups come to us that yes, we have a NOC, please fund us, please release the first money. But the NOC is the old concept. There is no NOC from the CDSO side, right, ma'am? I mean, yeah. Okay, so that is why, because of all these challenges, we have started DRAPA. We thought that yes, we are giving a lot of funding, we are supporting startup, but at the end, nothing is actually coming into the market because everything is stuck at the regulations. And startups come to us, and at the various platforms of BIRAC, they just talk about the regulatory challenges. So we have created this new department at BIRAC, and the aim is to drive innovation through navigation of regulatory complexities, harmonization of global regulations, and advocate for policy that catalyze the growth of startups, SMEs, and entrepreneurs. So I will not go through the objectives. So these are the 5 verticals of the RAPA. So first, very important is the facilitation, regulatory facilitation for the startups. We have various programs, First Hub, Refine, I will present in my next slides, which are very specific for the startups, for the entrepreneurs, for the innovators who want to take regulatory guidance from different kind of stakeholders, not only CDSU, but all the regulatory bodies which are covered under the biotech domain. They come under the purview of First Hub. I will explain about these things. And then we have a vertical within the RAPA, which is for the in-house compliance. So whatever proposals we fund, we check that all the proposals are aligned with the Indian national regulatory requirements. So this is again a very big task. The third one is in process. We are trying to develop regulatory centers. It is specifically for testing and certification. We want to upgrade some of the existing Bionest incubators or academic university-based labs to a level wherein they have become compliant to regulatory requirements, and they start testing the prototypes, whatever are developed by the startups, at some subsidized rate. So there are multiple things which are happening. Fourth and fifth are actually linked: policy advocacy and developing impact papers. So this is something which I will talk about in subsequent slides. So let's start with facilitation. If you have any program, you can submit your query under the First Hub portal of BIRAC. How many of you have availed this services from the First Hub? Okay, so you must have not reached the stage wherein you thought that regulatory guidelines are applicable to your products. But believe me, this is the platform where you can directly connect with various agencies like CDESCO, NIB, GEM, KIHT, BIS. So all the ICMR is one of the agency. So if you have any query, any question related to these organizations, they come and meet on first Friday of every month, and we take queries of the innovators. So you can directly write to us. In fact, you should submit a query through the BIRAC portal, BIRAC First Hub portal. So any query related to regulatory pathways, IP, investment opportunities, mentorship, market access, you can submit it First Hub. So these are just the recent, the list of the First Hub sessions we did, around 6-7. We are mandated to do one only, but because of the high demand, we are doing 2 or 3 First Hub sessions every month, and that too with the 2021 queries. So thanks to all the experts from these 6-7 agencies. And it is all booked for next 2 or 3 months. That's the load we have for the First Hub, the kind of questions we get. Okay, so this First Hub is only a kind of awareness program. It just gives a holistic overview at what exactly, where to go, which portal, NSWS or SUGAM, or which guideline to refer to. But I've actually seen startups come back to First Hub 3 or 4 times. Yes, I've gone to that website, but I really need some kind of hand holding. What to do now? So they just referring them to a guideline, to a portal, never helps. So we need a hand-holding program. That is why we recently launched Refine, which is regulatory facilitation for innovators and entrepreneurs. And it has 4 different services. And very important. So first one is customized product-specific in-depth regulatory. So any questions or any queries which is very specific to your product. Because in First Hub, we give a general guidance. Right? If you have a product, you can go to this medical device rule you should follow. And we usually give you just 5 to 10 minutes of time. But if you have very specific queries and you want to share your IPs, your confidential data with the CDESCO or with an expert, then you can come with to Refine program, and you will get very specific regulatory guidance for your product. The second one is application support. It will help you in the application process also, in developing the guidelines, not the guidelines, the dossiers, the documentation for the application. Third is risk assessment. So I talked about risk assessment at the very beginning of my presentation. Like when you are at early stage of the product development, that time you should do a risk assessment, regulatory risk assessment, so that later on you should not fall into the valley of death. And success metrics for product development, whether your product will succeed or not, what kind of things you should know, regulatory requirements you should know at the beginning. So these are the 4 services which we provide. And if you want to avail, you have to enter through the first hub currently, because we have not opened it for the general public, but we will. I was actually waiting for this question. So I can't say anything at this stage, but definitely currently we are not charging anything, but in near future we will announce some guidelines regarding the Refine. And it is not currently open for general public. So from the first hub we are selecting few queries which goes to the Refine. So policy advocacy, this is something which we are doing within RAPA. It's a think tank for and of BIRAC. We organize regularly some brainstorming sessions, policy dialogues, and basically we always say that we are the voice of startups. So whenever there are some consultations happening at the government level, we participate and we give the opinion of startups. So these are some of the examples. We have recently created a global regulatory knowledge exchange forum for emerging technologies. And this is very specific for those technologies where there is no regulatory framework exists. So like CGT, stem cells. So there are no regulations as such. So that is why the idea behind this is, let's start the dialogue between the global agency like US FDA, EMEA, MHRA. So let's bring all the parties together and start the dialogue. If we share the exchange at the very beginning, then ultimately whenever we form a guideline, it will be harmonized. And believe me, it is very difficult to harmonize the guidelines once it is developed. All the international organizations, including WHO, they have different harmonization cells, but now they have changed the concept from harmonization to convergence, because they have realized that harmonization is not possible. And it is affecting trade, a lot of trade, and companies have to do a lot of extra experiments, a lot of extra tests just to enter into the US or the EMEA market. And this is one of the consultations we are doing on 20th of February. And it is very specific on CGT, regenerative medicine, and precision medicine. So it is actually through invitation only. If you want to participate, you can write to, this is my email ID, headrapa@birac.nic.in. And we believe in collaboration, so we have already collaborated within the RAPA for regulatory and policy work. We have collaborated with the US FDA, WHO, CDESCO, and there are multiple, but USP is one of the partnership I really want to explain, because this will actually help in bringing subsidized reference panels, reference standards for the researchers and for startups also, which are currently very high cost and there is a monopoly, and it's very difficult to even get access to. You have to wait for 6-7 months sometimes for getting that standard. So it is something which we are working on, and also we will try to develop educational material with the USP specifically for biologics area. And the third aspect will be on the development of monographs, wherein we are working together with WHO and USP for developing some kind of specifications for the biologic product. Okay, this is one of the, I will say, not a call, but we are inviting applications for empanelment of agencies in the regulatory and policy domain. So if you are interested, you can apply here. And this has 2 different categories for, it is not an outsourcing, it is a kind of partnership, it's a kind of engagement with the various stakeholders, with the various experts, with the various consultants who are working in this domain. So that, because the load is quite high, the number of startups we are supporting is more than 8,000. So I just have 8-member team. So it is very difficult to actually implement or all the kind of work, all the good regulatory related work we are trying to do. It is very difficult to implement through 8. So this is why it is not outsourcing, it is a partnership, it is a kind of engagement, but we are doing because we are a government organization and we have to follow the tender process, and that is why this is just the empanelment. And every time we have to do a kind of workshop or some kind of consultation or any kind of research, any kind of landscaping, any kind of report we want to publish, we can very easily collaborate and we can work on these aspects. So these are the partners we are working with. This is actually 3 years old slide. So there are a lot of more partners which are already there, and thank you. This is just the impact. Again, this is 2 years old impact. The numbers have increased a lot. So thank you so much.
To stay informed about the startup ecosystem, subscribe to My Startup TV.